Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I want to talk about The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, and some other Rick Grimes, or I guess Andrew Lincoln news in general here. So yeah, before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this. I'm excited for this week because I do think we're going to get a lot more promotion for Dead City Season 2, and I'm also going to be posting a lot of Last of Us Season 2 videos as well, because the show is coming out on April 13th, and I've just been waiting for April to begin to actually start talking about The Last of Us Season 2, because that show honestly looks really great, and I'm really concerned about certain things in terms of what they're going to do with the story just based off of the second game, but like, it also makes a lot of sense that those things are probably going to happen. And yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts on that in general. And obviously it's an apocalyptic story, and I love zombies or just the apocalypse in general, so obviously I'm going to cover that. The Walking Dead and The Last of Us are very similar, so obviously it's going to be a show that I cover quite a bit, so yeah, stay tuned for that. But let's actually get into what I wanted to talk about here. So it's officially been 1 year since The Ones Who Live finale actually aired, and it's interesting looking back at the show, and I kind of wanted to talk about The Ones Who Live just in general, mostly that finale 1 year later, to talk about how it's viewed now, give some thoughts on it, you know, a year later, and talk about Rick Grimes' potential return and just sort of where things are at in general. It really is incredible that it's been 1 year. Like, I can't believe it's been a year since the finale aired, but it makes a lot of sense, I guess. And I think the craziest thing about that, to be honest, is the fact that it's been exactly 1 year since The Ones Who Live finale has aired, and we've only had one show in the last year. Like, if you think about it, like, ignoring obviously The Ones Who Live, but if you just look at exactly a year ago, like, obviously we had The Ones Who Live's finale, but besides that, it was just The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2, like 6 episodes. And when you're looking at it in terms of like 1 year of The Walking Dead, like, that's 6 episodes. I know 2 shows technically premiered last year, and we are about to get Dead City Season 2, but I think that really does say, you know, in terms of, you know, how a lot of people are feeling about The Walking Dead, that there's not enough episodes and some people are losing interest because there's not a lot of episodes. Like, that does make a lot of sense, because I think some people just sort of forget that The Walking Dead is airing, or you forget where the stories are overall. Because honestly, for me, in terms of Dead City Season 1, I actually forgot like certain story elements of the very final episode in terms of where they were going for Season 2, you know, where Ginny was, I think, in terms of Negan's story, and a few things that were set up there in the very last episode. So, you know, it's because it took too long for Season 2 to come out. I think for The Walking Dead, that's the biggest issue overall right now, is the fact that it is taking way too long for stuff to come out. And I think that's why a 16-episode series, you know, would be really exciting. I talked about that in a video that I just posted before this, so if you're interested in that, definitely go and check that out. But that would solve a lot of this, to be honest. Like, I can't even believe it. Like, when I look back at the last, like, year, like, I literally only talked about mostly The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 2. Because a year ago, I mean, I guess I watched the finale of The Ones Who Live, but overall, like, for most of that year, I just talked about Season 2 of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Like, just kind of insane compared to previous years where I would talk about The Walking Dead and cover a lot of episodes throughout the entire year. That's honestly why I'm excited to talk about The Last of Us Season 2. Like, Fallout was very exciting as well, and I wish I covered that a lot more. I definitely will when Season 2 is very close to premiering, but The Last of Us is something I'm really excited for because, you know, I think there's 7 episodes to this season, maybe 8. I can't remember exactly. I think there might be 7, which is still really not a lot, but I'm just excited to actually talk about something that, you know, is related to zombies and the apocalypse, because that's something that I really do like. I like that type of story because of, you know, how you can sort of relate with the characters that are really struggling through a lot of, like, you know, what's happening, you know, just in general, and just like what's been happening with the world, and just like you're seeing how people are reacting to things overall, and, you know, how I guess maybe things change. And I think that's really what The Walking Dead, you know, has always been very successful at, and still really is to this day. But there needs to be more Walking Dead content out every year. I really do believe so. I don't know what AMC is doing in terms of all that right now. I really don't. But if you're asking anybody in terms of like, should we have more episodes per season, or like what's going on, they're all going to say like, yes, we need more episodes. Like, 6 episodes is not enough. Honestly, 8 episodes for Dead City Season 2 is going to be really great, but I still think it should be more episodes than that, for sure. And so, looking at The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live a year later, that's really been the thing that I guess focus on quite a bit, is the fact that there hasn't been a lot of Walking Dead since then. Like, only having 2 shows a year and having it just 6 episodes or whatever, to me is just, it's kind of insane in general to do because of all the excitement for The Walking Dead. And I will say, you know, looking back at it now, like, there's a lot more excitement for The Walking Dead right now compared to, you know, where things were last summer. I would say The Ones Who Live finale obviously was very mixed. I would say there were a lot of people that really loved the finale a lot, and there were a lot of people that did not like it. I think that I am definitely more in the place of I didn't like it more than I liked it because of how much they rushed the story overall. But like I did like certain elements in terms of, all the characters reuniting at the very end. Definitely very cool to actually have that and see those scenes, right? But I also view it as like they reunited in a field and we didn't get more specifics in terms of where the characters are going. And it seemed very open-ended, like they could tell more stories. And so they never really wanted to commit to having the characters like go to Alexandria or certain places, because then doing a new series or something at some point, you would have to like explain that or have the characters there. So when I look at that very final scene with them reuniting, I just think, yeah, it's literally open-ended. It's in an open field because they can literally go anywhere. And so doing a new series, you can just decide on where you want to go in case you want to change to this or that. And so that's why that is a little frustrating for me overall, because I think that they should have decided on a few things, in terms of that. And this way, if you did a new series, then yeah, just like focus on what you set up there in the Ones Who Live finale. Because yeah, in terms of them reuniting, I just pictured it a little bit differently, but it was still a very cool scene to get in general. And I think the general reaction after the finale aired, honestly, was, I would say for the most part, I would say positive, once the episode actually aired, but I would say within a few days afterwards to like weeks afterwards to, a couple of months afterwards, that's where people started to really realize like, okay, so that finale kind of hurt The Walking Dead quite a bit because there wasn't a lot of excitement for the future or anything like that. And I would say last summer was really a lot of that, and like, the lack of promotion for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2, or not the lack of promotion, but just, calling it the Book of Carol, like it wasn't titled like season 2. So I think a lot of people didn't know that it was like season 2 of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Yes, some people will know that, but I'm just saying in terms of like actually promoting it, if it was called The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2, people would know that there's a season 2 coming instead of like The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, the Book of Carol. Like, is this a separate spin-off, or is this like a little like, web series or something of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon? It just has a different feel overall, and you can see that a lot in the promotion in terms of, I think people just being excited for season 2. And then there was the whole thing that happened to season 2 where everyone just started watching episodes before it actually premiered, and that really hurt, I would say, the show, and the excitement overall for just season 2 in general. And everyone had to avoid spoilers for so long, and it just, a lot of the excitement wasn't there, but you saw the excitement build again around episode 5 and 6 because that's where everyone was at. And so I think that's why the reaction to season 3's trailer or teaser trailer was really awesome, because it was just something completely brand new. And I think that was definitely the reset that they needed there. And now there's just been a lot of promotion for Dead City season 2, and obviously it's looked really great. So like when I look at overall, the state of The Walking Dead since The Ones Who Live has aired, it's gotten better now, and I think that it just, last year just wasn't a great year, I would say, for The Walking Dead. Like, there was a lot of excitement very early on, obviously, but I think for most of that year, for almost the entirety of the year, it really wasn't that exciting, and I think a lot of people just started to, like, not care as much, and I think that's changing now, obviously, but there's still some issues overall, I would say. But in terms of The Ones Who Live's finale and how I view that episode overall now, a year later, like, I do think if we did get a Rick and Michonne series, like a new series, that I'm going to look at that episode as, I could sort of like get over some of the story elements in terms of the CRM and everything like that. Like, it's still going to be rushed. There's still going to be all of those issues there. But if there's something new that happens in the future, then I'm honestly going to look at that and be like, well, my expectations maybe were just a bit too high for that story. I mean, they really did build it up like it was going to be like this really big thing, right? And it was, like, they really did, tell that story there in The Ones Who Live. It's just that they didn't tell it properly. And the finale was way too rushed. And I would say the first 4 or 5 episodes, for the most part, were really great, which again goes back to the whole 6-episode argument, which I think is hurting The Walking Dead right now. So The Ones Who Live, I would say overall, people mostly, I would say, liked the show. It was very cool to have Rick and Michonne come back. Like, that was really the most exciting thing about watching that, was like seeing them talk about like this or that and just like having a story with those characters. Like, it was a while since we've seen them, right? So it was just something that honestly for me was really cool to see. And I do look back at The Ones Who Live, and I could say that overall It was definitely successful, definitely in terms of the ratings and everything was very successful. The story at the end didn't necessarily hurt The Walking Dead in terms of where they can go in the future. It just hurt the CRM story, I would say, but they could still do certain things where they could be more involved, you know, in other stories and whatnot. I think Major General Beale as a character was definitely a failure, I would say. I'm not the biggest fan of his character at all. Yeah, I just can't believe it's been a year since The Ones Who Live has aired, right? It's just it's insane to think about, but overall, I think that, you know, I do like the show overall. I haven't went back and rewatched really any episode besides episode 1. That one to me feels like a movie. Honestly, it really does. Like going back to watch The Ones Who Live, episode 1, it was so cool to see Rick's return and all the struggles that he went through and everything over the years. And like, because he was gone for a very long time, right? So it was just kind of cool to see that whole story actually told in that episode, because it was literally like a backstory episode where you just saw Rick Grimes' backstory. Like, it's funny to view it like that, but that's literally what it was, right? So yeah, definitely post your thoughts down below on The Ones Who Live. How do you view the show exactly 1 year later? And how do you view The Walking Dead overall 1 year later? Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.